we need to talk about Cyberware Capacity Shards in Cyberpunk 2077. That is because so many Cyberpunk players are saying that Cyberware Capacity Shards are broken when in fact they are likely not broken. This is literally the it's a feature not a bug discussion that we're going to be having right here, because Cyberware Capacity Shards have changed since Cyberpunk 2.0. No one can deny that, but I think that that change was done purposely and it makes sense. So let's dive into it, and for those of you who don't know, let's go over the problem. So pre-Cyberpunk 2.0, Cyberware Capacity Shards were fairly easy to find. And when I say easy, I mean that they drop. If you played for a couple hours, you could very likely get a Cyberware Capacity Shard if you were going for them. If you're not trying to get them, there's a good chance that you won't get them, because that's just how video games work and life in general. But assuming you're trying to get a Cyberware Capacity Shard, you generally can get them, which led to people having an insane Cyberware capacity. In Cyberpunk 2.0 with the update, Cyberware Capacity Shards have stopped dropping for some players. Some players have noticed no difference, and some players are saying that they completely stopped dropping. Players are saying they've recreated characters, and the drop rate still isn't the same. So let's discuss that, because obviously the drop rate has changed. The thing is, people go a step further and they say that there's a big issue. They say that it's broken, they say it's a bug. They say, hey, I've been playing for hours and hours and hours and I haven't got one. Some people saying they've played for 20, 30, or even 50 hours. I don't know how you get 50 hours of gameplay in already, but hats off to you, sir. You play with your PP a lot less than I do. But yeah, like, people are just playing the game a ton and they're saying they're not getting their Cyberware Capacity Shards. What's going on? People are blaming a bug. People are saying this is all a bug, that something's gone off with the balance, that the loot tables need to be reset, and that there's just issues. But I don't think this is the case. And this is after discussing it with a few people who are really hardcore into Cyberpunk. This is talking with people who have low level accounts, high level accounts, people who've been playing for a while, and people who are new, because the experiences do vary. So there is a chance that there's a bug somewhere in there. There are some other Cyberware capacity bugs. For instance, if you equip a ton of Cyberware, then you decide to do something like reset your attributes, you get to keep the Cyberware on even though your Cyberware level doesn't match. In addition to this, there's issues where you might remove some Cyberware and the Cyberware capacity won't be dropped. So there are bugs. There are bugs in there. I'm not saying that there's not bugs, but I think the big issue here comes from a misunderstanding of how the loot and how the table and how everything drop rate wise was rebalanced. So rather than waste your time, here is the basic sort of premise of my hypothesis. It's that Cyberware Capacity Shards loot slower and slower the higher your Cyberware capacity gets, and that there is a Cyberware capacity cap at 320, or roughly 320 Cyberware capacity. This isn't to say that you can't go over this cap. It's more of a soft cap, if you will. So you can definitely go over this cap. There's players who have gone over this cap, but the way you've got to do it is sort of by cheesing the game, playing a lot, or just really grinding things out. It's not as easy as it used to be to get something like a 340 to, I don't know, even like 600 Cyberware capacity. And yeah, that's the highest I've heard of. I suspect there might have been some cheating involved, but the highest Cyberware capacity I've heard of in Cyberpunk, this is pre-Cyberpunk 2.0, is a 620 Cyberware capacity. I don't know what you do with it, but hats off to you, because I'd be completely lost and completely overpowered if we're being honest. But yeah, like, Cyberware capacities used to be off the charts with some of these people who are just grinding out a ton, playing a ton, really focusing on that to get these insane builds, or just, you know, typing into the console. So my basic premise is that to balance Cyberware capacity, there was a soft cap that was introduced when it comes to Cyberware Capacity Shards, whereas players could not loot so many of those shards as their Cyberware capacity got higher. Now, obviously, this can be played against. We'll go into how you can do that later in this video, but yeah, that's the basic premise. And the reason I'm saying this, the reason I came to this conclusion was just from talking with people. So what I've noticed is that when people start the game, they generally say, hey, I'm looting Cyberware Capacity Shards, I'm not having a problem with it. There's a few people, specifically it seems like on Xbox, that say they're still not looting it, so I think there might be an Xbox bug. And I pat my Xbox affectionately as I say that, just to give you guys a picture of what I'm doing right now, because of course you want to know. My right hand's over here, my left hand's down, and we're not going to talk about that. Anyways, though, Cyberware Capacity Shards. People start the game, they're looting them. It seems like normal Cyberpunk. As they get higher and higher, it seems like they start looting them less and less, to the point where people like to say around level 35 to 50, they stop looting Cyberware Capacity Shards altogether. And it seems like this level varies. It seems like some people say 35, some people say 50. There's people at 60 that are saying, hey, I'm still going strong. If you actually dig into it and you talk to these people, what you tend to find is the level 60 people are having a build that might be more focused on sort of ranged. It might be more focused on melee. It's not really so focused on cyberware capacity. At level 35, when the people are saying they're no longer looting cyberware capacity shards, they have a build that is primarily focused on cyberware. So what I think is happening is between level 35 and 60, players tend to get to the point where their cyberware capacity gets into the upper 200s, maybe even 300, and at this point they start noticing less and less cyberware capacity shards. And I think that this is because there's basically a soft cap. So what's happening is the loot table reduces the likelihood of you looting a cyberware capacity shard as your cyberware gets higher and higher. This is done so that players can't get some insane cyberware capacity and basically can't cheese the game to the point that they have one of these just unlimited damage, unlimited, like just crazy builds, right? So yeah, I think that's it. I think they were just trying to rebalance the game. They reduced the amount or the likelihood that you could loot cyberware capacity shards, and because of that, players are saying that there's a bug. I don't think there's a bug. I think it's just a change to the way that the game is played. And before anyone goes chopping my head off or anything like that, just because I'm talking about my theories doesn't mean I agree with the change or disagree with the change. I think there's reasons to sort of I think there's reasons that this change makes sense, and I think there's also reasons that this change sort of sucks. Because a lot of people were relying on being able to get those cyberware capacity shards so they could build their favorite builds. But at the same time, if you put too much time into your character, you probably get to the point where cyberware capacity doesn't matter. And as a game developer, that is the last thing you want. You don't want one of these stats, one of these things that's supposed to help balance a character, to not matter. So I think that is essentially why they introduced sort of a soft cap when it comes to cyberware capacity shards looting. Now, if you want to beat this, if you want to get more cyberware capacity than ever before, there's probably a way to do that too. So what I've noticed is the loot table sort of stays the same if you're pretty low in cyberware capacity. So what I'd suggest doing is looting shards and not putting any other skills, any other things into your cyberware capacity. Just looting those shards, getting it up to a level that you're happy with, and then really going down that attribute tree, really getting those perks. So for instance, if you have Edge Runner, maybe you drop that. If you have Renaissance Punk, maybe you drop that too, and now all of a sudden your cyberware capacity is way diminished. This is likely going to lead to you looting more shards, at which point you can jack up your cyberware capacity, and now you should have a little bit more. There's still going to be a soft cap, but I'm guessing it's probably going to be a bit above 320. My guess would be using this method, you might be able to get somewhere like, I don't know, 360 to 400 is where I'd like to say. But yeah, hopefully this video helps. Hopefully I explained my idea. Hopefully it makes sense. And I look forward to having some discussions down below in the comments. One thing I don't look forward to is mid-roll ads, so I'm going to end the video here so you don't get those. Until next time, peace.